here. Sometimes the icon's influence can be felt more than actually is explicitly stated. So there are lots of different ways that these writers interpreted their icon. And in the back of the collection, every writer did a few sentences on why they chose the icon they chose. So if you're curious, after reading the collection, you can find out a little more about it. I chose Truman Capote, one of my favorite writers. And In Cold Blood is certainly in my top 10 favorite books. I taught it for many years, and I feel a great affinity for it. My story is really about young men, though, at their first year in college, pledging, and they're being asked by the older brother in their fraternity to kill an animal, a goose, with a golf club as their final pledging task. And this is something that was actually based on a true thing. And I felt it was so disturbing that I needed to write a story about it. And a lot of what the story is about, though, is the ways that we're compelled, particularly men are compelled to do violence because of the pressure of other male influences. Sometimes the person pulling the trigger isn't the source or origin point of the violence, is what I was trying to get at. And so my story, without saying too much, explores the way that violence can be ignited by very charismatic, in this case, very charismatic fraternity brother, who is pretty despicable, if you ask me.
Wow. I agree.
Well, I mean, two icons there, Truman Capote and Vita Sackville West. I mean, come on. That's amazing. I'm very much looking forward to getting my own copy. For listeners, we are including links in the show notes and on our website for you to purchase your own copies. We're talking with John Copenhaver and Anne Laughlin. John is the co-editor of the forthcoming anthology Crime, Inc. Iconic, which drops September 2nd, and Laughlin is one of its contributors. This probably is a premature question, but did it go so well, the process, that a second anthology in the series is on the books?
That is certainly by design the hope. I have a list of writers who I'm really dying to include. Like I mentioned earlier, there's so many wonderful queer writers out there. There certainly could be. Nothing is absolutely been established yet, but a lot of it depends on, people buying this copy and supporting this collection. So go buy your copy so we can do this again. But yeah, we would love to do another Crime, Inc. and it would be a different theme, of course. It probably won't be iconic. It would be some other theme that's related to the queer experience, but certainly crime stories and featuring a lot of these fantastic authors. We'd love to keep it going as a series.
Absolutely. Well, I do want to fit in a quick, because I'm just under 2 minutes here. Anne, what is next for you after Crime, Inc. Iconic?
I've just started a new novel and set in Chicago, and featuring a woman whose mother is a pawn shop owner and fence. And so she's the daughter of a criminal, and she's a private investigator.
Excellent. And John, how about for you? Real brief.
Yeah, I am in the midst of writing the third book in the trilogy that started The Savage Kind and the Hall of Mirrors. This is Hall of Mirrors is the second book, and this is the third, called Goddess of Love, and it takes these characters into the early 1960s. And there's an inheritance. One of them becomes very wealthy, but with a great inheritance, you have great responsibility and perhaps something that much more nefarious at play. So I want to round out that trilogy. So I'm working. When I'm not promoting, I'm working.
Well, speaking of promoting, so for our Chicago listeners, there is a release party for Crime, Inc. Iconic. It's on September 11th at 7 p.m. Free to attend, but registration is required. It's at Women and Children First. You can head out to their website to register. It's at 5233 North Clark Street. Wow, I just can't talk today. The book is Crime, Inc. Iconic. We've included links in the show notes and on our websites, am950radio.com and heartlandsignal.com, for you to pre-order and buy your own copy. You can connect with John at johncopenhaver.com. Anne is at AnneLaughlinWriter.com. John and Anne, thank you for joining us today. Friends of the show, please come back soon.
Thank you so much.
Bye-bye. We had a wonderful time.
All right.
Thank you.
Well, we got some film reviews coming up for you. Stay tuned to The Gaily Show.
Thanks to the Biden-Harris administration's prescription drug law, people with Medicare now have lower costs and more benefits, including a $35 monthly cap on covered insulin, free recommended vaccines, and a brand new $2,000 cap on out-of-pocket drug costs beginning in January. Finally, thanks to the law, Medicare is now negotiating directly with drug companies, resulting in new, lower prices for 10 of the most expensive and most prescribed drugs in Medicare. Learn more at lowerdrugcosts.gov.
Sponsored by the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services.
Ooh, just what I needed. A mug. This time of year, what do you give? When it's your extra concert, game, or special event tickets to VetTix, you're giving our nation's brave service members and veterans an amazing experience. Give something to those who gave. VetTix. For more information on how you can make a difference right now, or to become a VetTixer, go to vettix.org.
Tune into the Thom Hartmann radio program, your home for news, opinion, and insight, right here on WCPT 820, where facts matter.
AP News, I'm Marcela Sanchez. The world's leading authority on food crises says the Gaza Strip's largest city is gripped by famine. At a press briefing in Geneva, Tom Fletcher, the United Nations humanitarian chief, asked Israel to open their crossings to let aid in.
Let us get food and other supplies in, unimpeded and at the massive scale required. End the retribution. It is too late for far too many, but not for everyone in Gaza. Enough for humanity's sake. Let us in.
Meanwhile, AP correspondent Lawrence Brooks reports on Israel's warning to Hamas as Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu approves a takeover of Gaza City.
Israel's defense minister has warned that Gaza City could be destroyed. That's unless Hamas accepts Israel's conditions to end the war as the country prepares for an expanded offensive in the area. Israel Katz wrote on a post on social media platform X, "The gates of hell will soon open on the heads of Hamas until they agree to Israel's conditions for ending the war." His comments come a day after Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu said he would allow the military to mount a major operation to seize Gaza City. Netanyahu added that negotiations would also restart with Hamas, aimed at returning all the remaining hostages and ending the war on Israel's terms. The wide-scale operation in Gaza City could start within days. I'm Lawrence Brooks.
The Trump administration says it's reviewing more than 55 million people who have valid U.S. visas for any violations that could lead to their deportation. And a federal judge issued a preliminary injunction stopping further expansion of Alligator Alcatraz. Advocates say the immigration detention center in the Florida Everglades violates environmental laws. More information at apnews.com. AP correspondent Ed Donahue reports on the continuing investigation of Hulk Hogan's death.
Hogan, real name Terry Bollea, died last month of what the medical examiner said was a heart attack. Police in Clearwater, Florida, say the Hogan case is unique and has required them to interview multiple witnesses and seek medical records from a variety of providers. Hogan was 71. Paramedics and police rushed to his beachfront home following a 911 call. That call and police body camera video of the scene have not been released. A police statement said all of this takes time. Police have previously said there was no evidence of foul play. Hulk Hogan's daughter, Brooke, said on Instagram earlier this month his cremation was postponed because of family questions and mentioned paying for an autopsy, saying his dignity and legacy deserves it. I'm Ed Donahue.
And I'm Marcela Sanchez, AP News.
This is 820 AM, WCPT Willow Springs, and streaming worldwide at WCPT820.com. We are Chicago's progressive talk, where facts matter. Now, your WCPT 820 weather update.
From the Weatherology Weather Center, I'm meteorologist Jennifer Wojcicki. A blend of clouds and sunshine develops here for today. We'll see a high in the low 80s. Winds out of the northwest around 5 to 10 miles per hour. Tonight, mostly cloudy skies develop, a low near 66. By Saturday, a slight chance for showers and thunderstorms. Blend of clouds and sunshine develops, high around 83 degrees. Then by Sunday, mostly sunny skies, a high around 74. That's your latest Chicago weather update.
Currently, it's 70. DQ presents The Sound of Happy. Hear that? That's the DQ chicken strip basket. Only $7.49 for a limited time. We're talking 4 100% white meat seasoned chicken strips served with fries, Texas toast, and DQ signature country gravy. Yeah, you heard that right. For crunch time in no time, it can only be the DQ chicken strip basket. Just $7.49 for a limited time. Get it delivered in the DQ app. Happy tastes good at participating locations.
Alexa, play WCPT.
WCPT from TuneIn.
Welcome to Choose Views with Richard Chew. Get ready to dive into a world of insightful conversations and thought-provoking discussions.
As progressives, our job is to have an all-inclusive, full-on assault with all of our players.
A show that focuses on moving our political, social, economic, gender, and cultural conversation forward.
And all of our players means all of our players.
It's Choose Views. And now, here's your host, Richard Chew.
Good Friday morning, progressives. We made it, y'all. Welcome to the August 22nd, 2025 edition of Choose Views, 773-763-9278. That is our Credo mobile phone and text line. Reach out to us. And you can find my show on Facebook Live, TuneIn Radio, and YouTube, as well as emailing me at richard@wcpt820.com. Follow me on X, Instagram, Facebook, Blue Sky, Substack, Threads, and yes, even LinkedIn. Yeah. We hang out there. We post ourselves and do the cool things that all the cool kids do. Catch all of our shows by subscribing to our WCPT podcast on Apple Podcasts and Spotify and iHeartRadio, and of course heartlandsignal.com. There you can get Choose Views, featured interviews, Joan Esposito live, local and progressive, driving it home with Patty Vasquez, the big picture with Edwin Eisendrath, Out Chicago, and our other shows and interviews. Make your way over to heartlandsignal.com. What's happening over there right now? We've got a couple of great posts and articles that range across the board in terms of what some of the crazy A Republicans are doing. And they start with Michigan State Rep Alicia St. Germain saying that it's not fair for her to be prosecuted for hitting someone with their car. That one will blow you away when you check that one out. And also a clip from State Representative in Texas, Nicole Collier, and what she's going through down there, being forced to, you guys may have seen this. We have the clip. We didn't get a chance to play it, and we may get to it today, but today's a busy show. But there's a clip of her having a conversation with Senator Cory Booker, and someone comes into the bathroom. It's insane. But check out the clip. It's better served if you catch it there. And then Stephen Miller, what a disgusting acting person. I throw the word acting in, or being like, because I want people to realize that I'm not, unless it's absolutely necessary, calling the person the name. But Stephen Miller is acting in a very disgusting way. How about that? And being a disgusting person. Referring to folks that are protesting the Trump administration in Washington, D.C., and the National Guard's occupation of D.C. is all of these elderly white hippies. They're not part of this city and never have been. Well, let me help you understand something, young fella. They were there before you were born. Many of them were. That's a fact. That's not me being hyperbolic or being PO'd at you and your insanity and your crazy acting ways. Many of them were there. Those white hippies, absolutely. I can get down with that because I know for a fact from my visits there when I was in 7, 8, 9, 10 years of age going to Washington, D.C., there's a lot of cool white hippies that were hanging out there then and other parts of the country. Just because you weren't cool, didn't get the love when you were at Santa Monica High School, doesn't mean that the white hippies that have helped to change this country in many ways weren't in D.C. way before you ever got there, or the words came out of your mouth. So anyhow, that's over at Heartland Signal. I say this sometimes, and you guys, I think you may have heard me say this on the family meeting, and I may have said it here a couple times. I never have doubted that there's a higher power. But when crazy stuff goes down, Henry, and people say stupid stuff, that's when I know there's a higher power, because I'm never riding with any of my road dogs at that time. I'm never rolling with Eric Grant or some of my other road dogs at that time. In most cases, I'm hanging with my wife, or I'm here with you or Devin or Matt, staying out of trouble. And that's why the higher power has kept me from being in the presence of folks like that say stupid things like that. There you go. So today's show, Senator Willie Preston will be with us in the 6:30 hour, and he'll be talking about his candidacy that he's running for Congress. Our good friend Karen Byrne from TruBlu Politics podcast will be in studio with us in the 7 o'clock hour, and we're going to chop up a few different things that she and I have been passing notes in class on the last couple of days. And then author Kevin Schultz will be with us in the 7:30 hour to talk about his book. And this is an intriguing book. It's titled Why Everyone Hates White Liberals, Including White Liberals. So that's going to be an interesting conversation. And he'll be calling in the 7:30 hour. So we'll chat with him for a brief bit about his book. And so we look forward to having that conversation. But let's have a little bit of fun with someone who knows a little bit about a few things. Check this out, progressives.
Hello, my friends. Here's the bald truth. When a government orders every museum label, every piece of history to be reviewed for political alignment, that is not curation. Not by a long shot. What that is control. And we can't stop what we won't name. So let's name this clearly. It's called Gleichschaltung. That's called alignment. It's a totalitarian move that's happening with the Smithsonian. It's trying to bring it into line with one man's vision, not the truth's complexity. So what can you do? Here's your first action. Make the threat visible. Post about it. Write a short letter to your local newspaper. Share the executive order number. What is it? 14253. 14253. So people can search it for themselves. Give them the links to the articles that are in Associated Press, Politico, and the Times articles. They're doing great coverage of this. The second thing you're going to do is document what we have now. If you can, visit the exhibits, photograph the labels, save the web pages. Anyone can do that. Archive them. So if the story changes later, we have the receipts, right? Okay, this is kind of fun. The third thing you're going to do is teach the parallel. Explain to your friends and your families and everyone you know what happened to museums in 1933 Berlin. I'm coming to you from Germany. Show them that history isn't repeating, but it sure is rhyming. And rhymes are easier to stop if we hear them clearly. So the first defense of truth is attention. Shine a bright light, a spotlight on this, and you've already broken the spell of secrecy. Before I end right here, truth doesn't need permission to speak. It just needs you to amplify it. I'll be back.
Melissa Dalton Bradford, that's who that is. She is, I'm referring to her as a Smithsonian scholar, but she has a breadth of knowledge about art and entertainment and artifacts. And so she's been dropping some knowledge, and we've been following each other and communicating back and forth. Tremendous brain. There's a couple things that are in there that are relevant to where we are with what's happening with Smithsonian and other museums right now. And, sometimes I say I'm insulted about certain things, and sometimes I'm just PO'd. So what am I saying here? To rewrite history, to change history. I mean, the reason I made the point about Stephen Miller is that's about changing history, if you think about it. These white hippies were never here before. Oh, yes, they were. Changing history like they didn't exist. What Melissa's saying is changing history, rewriting history. So she gives a little bit of an action plan. You know how I talk about, getting involved, homework assignment. You heard it all. That's what she's talking about. Michelle Peltier was spot on earlier this week in Moments with Michelle when she said, with all that's happening, when we get to the other side, when that time comes and we've made it through this and we've been able to fight back on gerrymandering and redistricting and doing what California's doing and hopefully what other blue states will do to not only offset but run over these fools, just run downhill on them. And we get to the other side, we may need some printed evidence. We may need some boxes of files not stolen by Trump. We may need some printed items that are showing us that our history is our history. It did take place. Because when you look at the effort of Project 2025, and you look at the efforts of a Peter Thiel, based on their actions, so that no one can come back and say that's not what they did. Based on their actions, they are doing things to collect data and then rewrite history, so that we're looked at as ones that didn't exist, and what took place didn't happen. So take a little bit of a lesson, if you will, from what Michelle said earlier this week and what Melissa just said in this clip about making our history known by keeping it, by doing something as simple as going to exhibits now, if you can. And if you're not in Washington, D.C., to go to some of the exhibits there, then go to the ones in your hometown or the town that you live in. And know that they existed, because that's the next step. So when I say all players means all players, and I say that we all have to lean in, it's stuff like this too. It's all of us finding a way to be involved and being willing to, and then getting involved in this fight. And these incremental changes that they're making are massive when you look at them. When you sort of pull the lens back and look at them, they're massive changes because they're trying to rewrite history for all of us. And so the white hippies comment, there's some cool white hippies that got together with some brothers and sisters with afros back in the day. And so that coming together is one of the things that they want to break apart. All right, let's take a break. You're listening to Choose Views on WCPT, AM 820 in Chicago, and WARR 1520 AM and 103.5 FM from Warren County, North Carolina. I'm Richard Chu. We'll be right back.
Check up on health with Chris Whitting.
If you've been in a fast food restaurant lately, you've probably seen the calorie counts on the menu. Dr. Brian Elbell from the New York University School of Medicine led a study that found that the added information made no difference in what a customer ordered.
Just over half of the adolescents that went into the restaurant saw this information, but only 9% said that the information influenced their choice. And we, in fact, didn't see any change in the number of calories purchased before and after calorie labeling started for these communities. And we found pretty similar results for choices that parents reported making for their children. So some people are clearly seeing this information, but it's not translating into a change in the number of calories purchased.
So why don't calorie counts on fast food menus make a difference?
There's a lot of things that are influencing food choice, particularly for adolescents. There's taste, and clearly unhealthy foods tend to taste a lot better. There's availability, there's price, and all of these things tend to work against labeling and nutrition.
For Checkup on Health, I'm Chris Whitting.
Alexa, play WCPT.
WCPT from TuneIn.
This is Choose Views with Richard Chu.
Hey guys, welcome back to Choose Views. Thanks for being with us on this Friday, August 22nd, 2025. A couple of Choose Views news this morning. Intel seeks additional lifelines following SoftBank's announced $2 billion investment in Intel. The struggling chip maker is seeking more backers at a discount, according to CNBC. The one-time chip juggernaut has struggled to reverse, years of market share decline, including failing to secure a strong foothold during the AI boom as rivals, including NVIDIA, pounced. Intel is counting on SoftBank infusions as well as possible White House stake that we mentioned earlier this week to juice its turnaround. But some skeptics believe that that may not be enough. Hurricane Aaron has lashed out on the East Coast, as we've been talking about this through the course of the week. More than a dozen states are under flood and surf warnings and other warnings through the end of the day today as Hurricane Aaron draws closer to the East Coast. The unusually large Category 2 storm is packing winds more than 100 miles per hour and causing dangerous waves from Florida all the way up to Newfoundland, Canada. Parts of North Carolina's Outer Banks remain under evacuation orders for coastal flooding, and the state's governor, Josh Stein, who declared a state of emergency, has said beaches are closed, and others are closed as far north as Massachusetts. The Fed sees inflation as the bigger risk right now. Most members of the Federal Reserve saw inflation as a greater risk to and threat to the economy in their decision to stand pat on interest rates in July. Minutes of that meeting released Wednesday show that only a few members considered the risk of sweeping new tariffs bigger to the jobs market than to consumer price growth. Remarks set the stage for the Jackson Hole Symposium beginning yesterday, at which analysts expect Fed Chair Jerome Powell to lower expectations of rate cuts in September. And I think he knows what he's doing, so let's keep that separation of church and state with the White House. Companies are planning fewer hires. Hiring plans by U.S. companies have shrunk for a second year, with 20% of employers surveyed by the Conference Board saying they will bring on fewer employees for the second half of this year. That proportion is also double the amount of firms planning to cut back from last year. The latest research groups show more and more companies, public and private, that are members said that the economic uncertainty amid new tariffs, deportations, and the advent of artificial intelligence has given many employers pause. The U.S. and the EU did announce a car farmer tariffs. What does that mean? The United States and the European Union yesterday released some details on their recent trade agreement and the framework that spells out tariffs on crucial industries such as cars, pharmaceuticals, and semiconductors. The U.S. will set baseline tariffs of 15% on nearly all goods coming from the EU, and generally the tariffs won't stack through the rest of the year. For cars, though, the current rate of 27.5% won't be lowered until the EU introduces legislation to decrease levies on U.S. food products such as seafood, dairy, and nuts. And if you are a Starbucks fan, Starbucks is betting on coconut water. With younger consumers prioritizing health beverages, Starbucks expects to expand into a test mode of cold foam drinks featuring coconut water in many of their stores. According to CNBC, Starbucks will roll out the drinks in more than 400 stores across major cities, including Los Angeles, New York, Chicago, starting today. The plan already tested in New York is to layer matcha. Get that? Matcha foam. What is matcha? But matcha foam, I'll say that a third time, or cold brew foam over coconut water. Starbucks hopes the healthier choices can reboot sales after a string of weak earnings. Well, a lot of people are making their own coffee and doing their own thing now, so that's part of it too, Starbucks. And some people like to go to a place and not have to hear everybody else's conversation. Anyhow, there you go. Some Choose Views news on this Friday, August 22nd, 2025. Now, if you're hanging out in Chicago this weekend, get out and about, as I say every Friday. So here are a couple of things that you guys can do if you're in the Chicagoland area. The St. Hyatt Carnival 2025 started yesterday, is running through Sunday, and that's going to be at the St. Hyatt, this Basilica, 3636 West Wolfram in Chicago. And there's also going to be this cool thing that I would go to. It's called the Bulls Fest. That's taking place today and tomorrow out at the United Center. Looks kind of fun. And another thing that I would be very busy if I were doing all these things. the Sangria Festival that's taking place tomorrow and Sunday, 3021 West Division. Could be fun for you to get out and hang out. The Chicago Pride film screening is taking place at the Logan Arts Center for the Arts, I should say. up at Logan Square. And then one more thing to hang out and do this weekend. That's City in a Garden. That's going to be taking place at 2714 North California. Collaboration of different art and landscape designs. Something for you guys to get out and enjoy and just have some fun. But wherever you are in the country, make sure that you check your local, activities calendar. You can simply Google things to do, and you'll be shocked sometime. I think that more and more, you want to be able to find things to do that are different than what you normally do, because we all can get into that little bit of that rut. So if you're listening to us here in Chicago, you're down in North Carolina, you're anywhere else in the country, if you're out on the West Coast, get out and about. If you're up in the Northeast, get out and about. If you're up in the Northwest, the Pacific Northwest, where my man Henry was just hanging out, get out and about. Anywhere you are, take advantage of what's going on in your local communities. It's always important to kind of expand those wings and do something that you haven't done in a while. Or do something that you haven't done in a while, or do something that you haven't done at all and bring some people with you, and then everybody can experience that in a different way. What is that called? Kind of building a little bit of community. So there you go. All right, guys. Glad to be with you as always. It's a Friday, so man, we're always running fast and hard on a Friday. Today on Live, Local, and Progressive, Joan Esposito will be talking to Darlene Dugan, head of Anti-Cruelty, and Scott Duff, co-host of Out Chicago, that airs on Sundays 11 to 1. And, of course, Live, Local, and Progressive airs 2 to 5, Monday through Friday, Central on WCPT, Chicago's progressive talk for 20 years. Tonight on Driving It Home, Patty Vasquez will be joined by guest co-host Dan Schaefer, and their guests will include singer, guitarist, impressionist Skip Griparis, Jackie from Pride Coffee Roasters, and Merrill Miller, market manager of the Jefferson Park Sunday Market. That's Driving It Home with Patty Vasquez, weekdays from 5 to 7 here on WCPT, Heartland Signal website, TuneIn, YouTube, and Facebook. And also, Patty will be filling in for Edwin Eisendrath on The Big Picture Saturday from 1 to 4. So there you go. Next week, Aya Ibrahim will be joining us from the State Department of State. Chicago Teachers Union President Stacey Davis Gates, journalist and transgender rights activist Aaron Reed, and comedian and political activist Cliff Cash will be with us next week. So lots to tune in, and of course, you'll have a chance to chat with our good friend Kurt Mullett from Hoosier Blue 63, who will be with us as well. So there you go. Lots happening in and around the area, and certainly in other communities. And we want to just keep you posted on that good stuff. So, all right. When we come back from this break, which we'll get to in a moment, we'll be talking with Senator Willie Preston, who will be talking about his upcoming run for Congress. So that'll be exciting and informative to hear what's happening in his world and what he's got planned in that campaign. One of the things, I guess you could say, that we've talked about this week a little bit, but not really gone deep into, is where we were a year ago. And we'll have a couple of clips that are going to play in the 7 o'clock hour when Karen's here. But we had, this time last year, we were very, very excited and filled with a lot of joy and a lot of energy toward what the future could look like. And part of the reason I want to play these clips in the 7 o'clock hour is we've got a few that really speak to what the city did and what the country was looking forward to doing. And that, of course, was last year's DNC convention here in Chicago. So I have to tip my hat again to all the officials of the DNC and the Democratic Party, and certainly the city of Chicago, the county, Cook County, and the state, and the leaders in those three or four different categories that put together one hell of a convention. It was, I very seldom would use a word like this, but it was very moving to be a part of it last year. And one of the things that I don't want you guys to forget, I want you guys to remember this vividly. Take a moment, anywhere you are in the country, you can go to YouTube and pull it up. But as part of your re-energizing and re-inspiration and finding some good rewind a little bit this weekend. And one of the things that you can do, no matter where you are in the country, is just go to YouTube or however you choose to search this. But I want you guys to go and Google, the DNC Convention 2024. Part of the reason I want you to do that is we've been hit with so much craziness and negativity from this administration, from this regime, and all of their, side players, the Greg Abbotts of the world, the Rick DeSantis of the world, the entire GOP. Is go back and look at some of the highlights from last year's convention. There's too much to have played on the show this week. We got a few clips that we'll play for you in the 7 o'clock hour. But I want you guys to go back and recapture some of that energy, recapture some of that good vibe and that joy that was there, that promise for a strong future. And I'll tell you, one of the other things you can do for some of your family and friends who were naysayers and may have sat out or may have voted for Trump and now have regrets for either of those actions, send them some of the information, the clips from the convention last year. Send that to them and let them know this is what we could have had. And not to be a smart A about it, but to let them know this is why you've got to get involved. This is why, even though you sat on the sidelines or you may have voted for Trump, this is why you got to be part of the new community that we're building. And remind them of that, because it seems like it was forever ago. And if you count the minutes or the seconds, maybe so. But it was just a year ago. And help yourself first in that space and help re-inspire yourself, re-energize yourself with that positivity that was there and that we were all so excited about. And then use that also as a way to help the people that that might be struggling now, that voted the right way, as well as those who did not vote at all or voted the wrong way. It's a small thing that you can do, but when I talk about finding creative ways to be a part of this solution, this is one that I think can be impactful for people that are in that are now going, oh my God, I can't believe this is where we are. So we are going to take another quick break. You're listening to Choose Views on WCPT AM 820 in Chicago and WARR 1520 AM and 103.5 FM from Warren County, North Carolina. I'm Richard Chu. We'll be right back.
WCPT replay.
Former Illinois Congressman Joe Walsh is here. Have you had any conversations with Republicans currently in Congress? Because what I found during Trump's first term is that I would talk to Republicans and they would toe the party line publicly. And then once the cameras were off and once the mics were shut off, it would be like, oh, my God, I can't believe this guy. This is horrible. This is awful.
It's still the same, Joan, but the scarier aspect is, whereas 7 years ago when I publicly came out against Trump, every one of my former Republican colleagues privately said, Joe, I agree with you, but I can't say that. But the number of true believing Trumpers now in the House and the Senate has really increased, and America needs to know that.
Keep listening to WCPT 820, because facts matter.
You're listening to WCPT 820. Here's the latest Chicago weather update.
From the Weatherology Weather Center, I'm meteorologist Jennifer Wojcicki. A blend of clouds and sunshine develops here for today. We'll see a high in the low 80s. Winds out of the northwest around 5 to 10 miles per hour. Tonight, mostly cloudy skies develop, a low near 66. By Saturday, a slight chance for showers and thunderstorms. Blend of clouds and sunshine develops, high around 83 degrees. Then by Sunday, mostly sunny skies, a high around 74. That's your latest Chicago weather update. Currently, it's 69.
Chicago's Progressive Talk, WCPT 820, where facts matter.
Welcome back to Choose Views with Richard Chu.
All right, guys, we are back. Glad to be back with you. Glad to be here on this Friday, the 22nd of August, 2025. Well, I said this earlier in the week, and I've said it a bunch, and I'll say it again and again because it's the truth. And more importantly, it's not more important than the truth, but it's something that we have to be proud to speak about, proud to acknowledge it, and willing to just let the conversations that other people want to hoist upon us about the Dems aren't doing this, the Dems aren't doing that, and blah, blah, blah about the Dems. What am I talking about? I'm talking about our bench. We got a phenomenal bench on a federal level, on a local level, and on a state level. We have a tremendous bench of people who are already holding office in one capacity, and others that are running for other offices. And with us this morning is one of our own great leaders here in the state of Illinois, and that's Senator Willie Preston. Good morning, State Senator. How are you doing this morning?
Good morning. I am doing fantastic.
Good to be with you. We've never met before. I know who you are. You are one of those strong leaders in the state of Illinois. You're part of that bench. You were Illinois State Senator from the 16th District. Tell our listeners about the 16th District. Tell them a little bit about, you and your background and sort of this world that you live in as a state senator in our great state of Illinois.
Sure. But I want to remind you, we have met before.
We have.
You may have forgotten.
Oh boy.
Yeah.
Embarrassing.
No. We've met before because I'm a regular guy. I'm a janitor. I'm a butcher. I used to stock shelves overnight at Home Depot. I was a carpenter. We've met before, and I want to make sure that America is reminded that it is not okay for us not to elect and have representation that is like the people that we represent. And so obviously I'm being a little bit facetious. We never physically met before, but I'm a regular guy, and we're going to make sure that in Washington, America is reminded that you've had leadership before that was like you. Well, my problem, and I think so many Americans' problem, particularly Democrats, I think we find it very strange that every time we look around, there's someone representing us who's just not like us, because the party bosses, the uber rich, have made it their business to decide who our leaders are. And so I'm from the south side of Chicago. I was born and raised on the south side of Chicago. My husband, my wife, and I have 6 children. And, I just have always been in love with the idea that Chicagoans and regular folks could all come together and do exactly what we wanted to do because we were going to be in control of our own destiny. So I'm a state senator, currently represent the 16th District. Working class folks, it's a very diverse district. We start over, to the very east at the Chicago Skyway and run through the city of Chicago throughout the south side, head over to the suburbs, places like Oakland, Burbank, Bridgeview, Hickory Hills. It's pretty diverse. And what I can tell you, what I have learned is that what we all have in common is we want the same stuff. We want to have safe communities. We want to have access to health care. We want to make sure that our children can ride a bike and not be afraid that they're going to get shot down. And so many of us are truly concerned that that's not our realities, and it's probably going to be worse for our children if we don't turn this thing around.
Yeah, and it's right now. Well, I'm going to first of all go back and commend you for your humor. You caught me on that. I was like, I remember people that I've met. I'm anybody that everybody that knows me knows that I have this crazy memory about people that I've met and events that I've experienced and when things happened. And I get teased a lot by those that are family and friends and business associates about, oh my God, here he goes again. He's going to go on for the next 3 minutes about when this happened, how it happened, where the sun was, what it smelled like in the room, and what music may have been playing at the moment. So that's, so when you said that, I was like, oh, wait a minute. My brain went, and
we must be kindred spirits, man, because that's actually how I got elected. I was outspent 20-1, at least on paper, and I think the reason we were able to overcome that in large part is I got that thing that you just spoke about too. So I see someone and especially now, having, served for some years now in the state Senate, it happened yesterday, a woman that I had met before, and she's like, you don't remember me? But I said, no, why you gonna do me like that? I do remember you. And I told her what jersey she had on, because she had on a Cubs jersey. And I said, you had on the Cubs jersey, and that's all right. I'll forgive you, because I'm a strong Southside, a strong White Sox fan. And she couldn't believe I remembered her. So, yeah, no, I can appreciate what you just said.
There are people there are family and friends of mine who are listening right now and going, oh, my God, don't put the two of them together, because Senator, that's exactly what I do. And it's a blessing, and I'm thankful for being able to remember the people that I've encountered. You have said something that, probably, not probably, needs to be said more and more, and frankly, every day. And that is, the importance of staying connected to the everyday folks that are part of our country, not just here in the state of Illinois. They're all over the place. And I had a conversation with a colleague of mine, and I was actually on his show, and talked about what is the definition of the quote-unquote everyday American or regular Americans. And one of the things that I said in that conversation is that many times when that conversation is had, and many times when we're talking about that the description of that person may not include that everyday person that looks like people of color. And I think that when that's, and I tie this to what you said about people from different communities not representing the community that they're from. And you really touched on something there in terms of what does the everyday, quote unquote working class person look like? And you've kind of tapped into something there. Let's talk about that a little bit.
Sure. So I'm sorry, just so I'm clear on the question, are you asking what my definition of
what's your
everyday?
Right. When you said that the everyday person, the regular, you described it as part of what you've done in terms of your rising into politics and things that you've done before you were in politics. But what does that everyday person look like or represent to you?
Look, my grandmother often said to me, Willie Jr., you got all type of folks in this life, right? And she was a nurse for 45 years, and she would often talk to me about different folks. She would talk to me about the people who came into the hospital. She had Jewish people. She had Africans. She worked with Filipino people. And what she told me is some people were wealthy and some people were poor, but when everybody laid in that bed next, she had to care for them, everybody was the same. I don't really like where the country has gone, even in terms of us talking about, folks, if they're wealthy or if they're poor, because I have a district on one end that is super, where people have, a lot of money. And then on the opposite end of it, I have people who are struggling as bad as anyone. But what I say the everyday American is, the everyday person, is somebody that, first of all, everybody wants to be heard. What we have done so often, and I see it every day, we tell people what we're going to do for them. People announce that they're running for Congress. They got to immediately telling people what they were going to do. Well, I thought that was a bad way to start. And the everyday American is out here being very vocal about what their issues are. And I think you can find that in what you find in every neighborhood is somebody, no matter how wealthy or poor, people are saying very clearly that they don't like how expensive things are in this world, in this country. And so I think the everyday American is, it doesn't matter your race, doesn't matter even your income levels most of the time. Everyday Americans don't like being told what to do. This is supposed to be a country of freedom. It's supposed to be a country where people can come here and create their own destiny. If they work hard, if they do well, if they work hard, they should do well. That's not happening right now because of a lot of the people that are not, in my opinion, everyday Americans, are people that are stuck inside of these echo chambers, whether it's Republican MAGA world, or even honestly sometimes our own party, where we believe that we have the answers for everybody. And instead of listening to folks, we're telling everybody what they're going to do. We're value. We're telling everybody what their values should be. So I probably talked all around that. Forgive me, but that is,
and not at all. It's a complex question. I asked that question for a reason because, and you got right to the point. It is our society is built off of the strength of diversity, of people, of thoughts, of ideas, and everything else you could throw in. If we are, when I remember there was a time when we used the word melting pot and to describe who we are as a country. And I remember using the words goulash or gumbo. And that some of the best ideas and best successes come out of the diversity of our communities and people being, to use your phrase, one of us. And that at some point, when we all recognize that we're all in this together, that's when we really have the strength of our community. So it's a complex question by design, but it's also one in terms of how you answered it. We have to be, I believe, continually be mindful of the fact that the more of us that are able to take advantage of or benefit from that hard work, benefit from putting in the time and doing the things that we want to do, the better off we all are. And our leaders have to reflect that as well by not just saying this is what they're going to do, but actually, rubber meeting the road. And that leads me to my next question for you that, you're running for the 2nd Congressional District. And you've made it clear that, jobs and redemption and justice, affordability are all part of your platform. So let's talk about, as you're running for this second congressional district seat, what are some of the things that, it's a two-part question, that you bring to the party, and then how are you going to use those things that you bring to the party to do well in the role if you were to win that seat?
We talked about 3 things in our campaign, and, I had my campaign staff came out with authenticity, audacity, and action. And I think those 3 things are really, quite frankly, a very good description of who I am. But it's who I think most people want to see represent them. Most people are authentic. So they want to see somebody that's authentic. I think most people, quite frankly, are, not maybe most people, let me back that up, but I think audaciousness has its value. I think it is a core portion of leadership. And so I bring that. I mean, the simple fact that we are talking today in an interview about me running for Congress is pretty remarkable because, again, I'm the furthest thing in many ways that should have been an elective office. I came from Inglewood, and I was involved in the things that people in my age group were involved in the early 2000s, young men like me. I was not promised to be much in life. Most of my friends, quite frankly, are dead or in jail or struggling because they did prison time and haven't been able to really redeem or reclaim their life and become contributing members of society because of the pit holes that exist in this nation, that black mark that's on your forehead if you've ever got convicted of anything. And then the last thing I think I bring to the party is action. I think there was an old activist, Mark Allen, and he used to call me Youngblood, and he said, when I was an activist, and he said, Youngblood, the problem with us is we suffer from a paralysis of analysis. I think our party has to start to take action, immediate action, when we see people that are coming down to tear down the very pillars of our country. And you think about like DEI, for instance. That is not something that we should have allowed to be casually brought up. We should have struck it down immediately. We should have challenged our Republican colleagues, by the way, who have all the rhetoric, quite frankly, better than Democrats on why DEI should exist. At least they used to. And what do I mean by that? Well, you And the Republican Party has always talked about people freeloading and all this stuff. Well, look, DEI in many instances in terms of economics was simply a real ploy to readdress those who want to do business in this country. It's not a handout. So you asked the question, what do I bring? I think I bring those things. I'm authentic. I'm not a perfect candidate. Never a perfect person, but I'm going to be honest about it. And I think most people want to see leaders in this country who they believe in, who they don't think is poll testing, responding to the way they respond to them is poll tested. And it's not truly who they are, because it speaks to something that people really, truly don't like. And I'm a part of the people. No one likes somebody that's a fraud. And I think to be completely frank, and it hurts me to say this, that's one of the things that Trump did so well, and people didn't like him. People didn't even, but they believed he was actually who he said he was. And turns out that he was. He was a maniac.
Yeah,
and he told us he was.
He rode that horse of authenticity across the line. But, I hear what you're saying. You're listening to Choose Views on WCPT AM 820 in Chicago and WARR 1520 and 103.5 FM from Warren County, North Carolina. I'm Richard Chu. We're talking to Illinois State Senator Willie Preston, who's also running for the 2nd Congressional District seat here in Illinois. I want to come back to what you said about that. And you said it hurts me to say this about one of the things that, if you could say, what did Donald Trump do is that authenticity. Authenticity, and it was kind of the disguise, though. It was a Trojan horse, because what was inside rode in. And now, going back to something you said a moment ago, so many programs, so many support systems, and so many things that have benefit. This is what I think a lot of people miss about programs that this current regime, Trump's regime, are cutting, haven't just helped people that are, quote, middle class or lower income folks. It's been a support system for people to build wealth in this country, and they look like all of us, those people that have been able to benefit from different programs. It's not just people of color. Black folks are people of color, or people that have migrated to the United States. It's people who look like the Main Street middle class white American that have benefited from the programs that are being eviscerated right now. What are you going to do if you were to win this seat to stem the tide in that space? One of the things that I think we need to focus on, and I think what I've heard through listening that so many people want to see, is they want to see these trade schools back inside their communities, particularly in the black community. I'm a strong supporter of trades. I want to see us focus and invest as a government in the next generation of plumbers, carpenters, and electricians. And we can do that. We can expand the Perkins V funding that does that. We can establish grants that are dedicated to municipalities and nonprofits to make sure that we support them bringing back these trade schools. I can tell you that is like a top issue if folks don't understand in working class and poor African American communities, for sure. And so that's areas that I want to focus on. And I want to also make sure folks don't know I passed the Illinois Food Safety Act, which bans these dangerous food additives, red dye number 3, propylparaben, a few other additives. And the reason that is so important, it cuts across all demographics, cuts across all racial ethnic lines. And people just want to make sure that their food supply is actually safe and that it's not poison, essentially, that they're eating. And so that's something that I'm going to focus on heavily. Working class Democrats really need to reclaim our place in the party. And I think working class Democrats will make sure that they reward the party by making sure the nation is back in Democratic control. And the only way we do that is if we elect people that are truly, truly from the community that they are seeking to represent. Yeah, and that's one of the, if there's been a criticism or certainly part of the conversation since the 2024 election, is that the Democratic Party didn't do that. Now, I'm not fully down that path, because I look at other parts of what haven't happened over a long period of time, and there's a lot of pieces to the puzzle to answer that question. But rather than always do revisionist thinking, I like to look at what we can do as we go forward. And, you seem to be one that represents the thinking that the more that we reach more people, whether they be like us or not like us, the better we all are going to be, because it is the essence of the phrase, "a rising tide lifts all boats." And you seem to kind of be leaning into that too. I don't want to put words in your mouth, but am I far off, or am I relatively close?
It sounded really good. It sounded really good. All of those Preston for Congress staffers that are listening, write that down. Let's incorporate that. No, I truly believe it. I've witnessed. I will go back to where my story sort of starts, and that was actually before I was born. It's where my father's story starts. My family is from Mississippi, and we go down. We've gone down my entire life over summers, and my wife and I brought a little small piece of property down before, and we go there where my father starts, and I like to go there because, man, it's still standing by the thread that it was on. It's a really small little shack, and I couldn't believe my father and my uncles and aunts actually started off in this little shack like this. And where we've come to today is truly remarkable. And I think we need to be reminded of that. I think we need to be grateful for that, because it's not all bad. My grandfather's story is he came here with a carload full of children, my grandmother, with $10. And what I remember of my grandfather was that they had a property in Inglewood. They had attached to it a big lot with heavy operating equipment, dump trucks, all this stuff. My grandfather had a business going. Democrats were supportive of that. And Republicans in many ways, because we were all saying, okay, maybe folks wanted to be segregated. I'm from Chicago, but they didn't try to stop people from doing well. And I think we have lost our relationship with the idea that we may not agree on everything, but we all want to make sure that all Americans have some level of independence, some level of security, some level of safety, because we're uniquely tied to each other, whether we like it or not. I think that used to be the case. I think Democrats remain the party of trying to pull people together and allow government to support people so that they can be able to have the greatest quality of life of anybody on the planet. This is still the best country in the world. I've traveled the world. I love this country. I think that we are not perfect. We never will be perfect. But if we're fighting to make sure that everyday people have a greater quality of life, like my grandmother's not going to lose her Medicare, her Social Security, those are the things that matter the most. We should not be doing things that Trump is doing to get rid of safety net hospitals so that people are literally dying in American cities all across the country. That's why I'm fighting to get to Washington.
And to your credit, State Senator, and that's why here we are strong believers in that. It's that we lift each other up, we all get stronger, and we all are better for it in the end. And I applaud you for those statements. How can people find you as we wrap up? How can they get involved? How can they find you?
Well, thank you again for having me. My website is electpreston.com. That's electpreston.com, and that is our website, and so they can find us and get involved in the campaign. With Grassroots Campaign, we're going to be asking everybody to give us $2 to $3,500, whatever they can help with, because we are not, we are truly from the people that we want to represent, regular working class folks every day. One of the things I would like to note is the district is from 43rd Street in Chicago, hovers around the lake, goes all the way down to Vermilion County. I'm from the northern portion of the district in Chicago, and we launched and announced our campaign in Vermilion County, the southernmost portion of the district. That's important. And the reason we did that is because wanted to ensure that every portion of the district will be a priority for me, and that they'll have a congressman. And that's 405 farmers who probably think they don't have much in common with a guy from Chicago on the South Side, but they do. And that commonality is that we're all Americans. We want to take care of our families. We want safety. We want to make sure that our families are thriving. And so I'm going to be the congressman for every single person. I do not have a famous name. I do not have the backing of big-time politicians, but I do have the heart of the people in mind, and I go to work every single day. No one's going to outwork Willie Preston, and no one's going to be more authentic, audacious, and I'm going to be about action for the people. I got to keep those taglines going. My staff is prompting me to keep doing with those.
Well, thank you, State Senator, for being with us this morning. We appreciate you taking the time out. We'll have you back when we can.
Thank you so much.
And thank you so much for taking the time. State Senator Willie Preston from the 16th District, running for U.S. Congressional seat number 2 in Illinois. Thanks for being with us this morning. Have a great weekend. Bye now.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
All right, guys, top of the hour. We got to take a quick break. The number is 773-763-9278. This is Choose Views. You're listening to on WCPT AM 820 in Chicago, WARR 1520 and AM at 103.5 FM from Warren County, North Carolina. I'm Richard Chu. We'll be right back.
I'm Ed Evans, CEO of Consumer Cellular. We're a different kind of wireless company dedicated to serving people 50 and up, like me. Because let's face it, our needs are different. Big wireless unlimited plans are designed for 20-somethings, not us. At Consumer Cellular, we're focused on one thing, bringing you affordable, reliable rate plans that suit your needs, not ours. How do we do that? We start by using the same towers as the big guys, the exact same towers. We then create rate plans designed for your usage. The fact is, we can offer you an unlimited plan with the same network quality for less because we understand how you use wireless services. Our plans start at just $20 a month. And forget trying to chat with robots. You'll get 100% US-based award-winning customer service when you need help. Come find out how wireless should be and join the millions who've made the switch.
Call 1-888-FREEDOM or visit consumercellular.com/facts. Plans include $5 credit for auto pay and e-billing. See site for additional facts.
Ready to step up your style? Do it in a Porsche. Own the road with power and performance. And find yours at the Porsche Exchange in Highland Park. Our tariff-free vehicles are available for immediate delivery, like the 2025 Porsche Cayenne. And right now, lease the 2025 Macan Electric for only $949 a month for 39 months. Don't miss out on the $7,500 EV tax credit and grab your electric Porsche today at the Porsche Exchange in Highland Park or PorscheExchange.com. $4,949 to its sign excludes tax, title, license, and NAC fee. No security deposit required. Expires 9/2/25.
That's the sound of the ComEd Energy Efficiency Program, saving you money and energy. With rebates on Energy Star appliances, so you can come back to a home full of savings. Discover more ways to save at ComEd.com/home savings. ComEd, powering lives.
Are you looking to hire? ZipRecruiter finds the best candidate for your job fast. Try ZipRecruiter for free at ZipRecruiter.com/free. That's ZipRecruiter.com/free.
AP News, I'm Marcela Sanchez. California will hold a special election in November to decide whether to approve a new congressional district map that would help Democrats win more U.S. House seats. Texas Republicans have advanced their own redrawn map to add the same number of seats to the House. And AP Washington correspondent Sagar Magani reports President Trump has scored a win in New York State's civil lawsuit against him.
New York Attorney General Letitia James had accused the president of exaggerating his wealth to deceive lenders and insurers.
He perfected the art of steal.
The then ex-president denied it last year, arguing the case was politically motivated.
They don't have any evidence against us.
But a judge's ruling meant Trump was on the hook for more than $500 million. Today, an appeals panel ruled that's excessive and threw it out.
They said this was a fake case. It's terrible thing, but it's a nice victory, you know.
The ruling comes 7 months after Trump returned to office. His Justice Department is investigating whether James violated his civil rights.
Former Sri Lankan President Ranil Wickremesinghe has been arrested on allegations of misusing public funds during his tenure as president. And the world's leading authority on food crises says the Gaza Strip's largest city is being gripped by famine. UN humanitarian chief Tom Fletcher says Israel needs to let humanitarian aid groups into Gaza.
My ask, my plea, my demand to Prime Minister Netanyahu and anyone who can reach him: enough. Ceasefire. Open the crossings, north and south, all of them.
Israel's Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu has denied there is hunger in Gaza, calling reports of starvation lies promoted by Hamas. World shares were mixed ahead of Federal Reserve Chair Jerome Powell's high-profile speech today at the annual Economic Symposium in Jackson Hole, Wyoming. This is AP News. AP correspondent Lawrence Brooks reports on Niger's army claiming to have killed a Boko Haram leader.
The army in Niger says it's killed a senior leader of Boko Haram in a targeted airstrike. State television reported Thursday night that the August 15th strike in the Lake Chad region killed Ibrahim Bakura and dozens of militants. The army said Bakura, who was in his mid-40s, was tracked for several weeks before the strike. Boko Haram are a homegrown group of jihadis considered one of the world's deadliest armed groups. It began its insurgency in Nigeria in 2009, causing around 35,000 civilian deaths and displacing more than 2 million people. Bakura's death is part of a renewed response by regional intelligence agencies against armed groups in West and Central Africa. I'm Lawrence Brooks.
More information at apnews.com. I'm Marcela Sanchez. Thanks for listening.
This is 820 AM, WCPT Willow Springs, and streaming worldwide at WCPT820.com. We are Chicago's progressive talk, where facts matter. Now, your WCPT 820 weather update.
From the Weatherology Weather Center, I'm meteorologist Jennifer Wojcicki. A blend of clouds and sunshine develops here for today. We'll see high in the low 80s. Winds out of the northwest around 5 to 10 miles per hour. Tonight, mostly cloudy skies develop, a low near 66. By Saturday, a slight chance for showers and thunderstorms. Blend of clouds and sunshine develops, high around 83 degrees. Then by Sunday, mostly sunny skies, a high around 74. That's your latest Chicago weather update.
Currently, it's 69. Are you a parent of a 2 to 8-year-old? Listen closely for an exciting offer, then head to abcmouse.com/radio to learn more. By now, you've probably heard of ABC Mouse.
ABC Mouse is like a little one-on-one teacher. It has helped her so much.
We're offering a promo at abcmouse.com/radio to try it for free for a month, then $14.99 per month until canceled. Go to abcmouse.com/radio to see this offer. That's abcmouse.com/radio. Actual ABC Mouse users compensate for their testimonials, sponsored by Age of Learning.
Because facts matter. You're listening to WCPT 820.
You're listening to Choose Views with Richard Chew.
All right. Well, listen, it's Friday, August 22nd, 2025. And that means a couple things. Tomorrow is Saturday and the next day is Sunday. But it also means that Fridays, my good friend Karen Byrne from TruBlu Politics podcast is hanging with me for the next hour. So, Karen, good morning. How are you doing?
It also means things are about to get messy.
It also means that see, this is one of the best parts. I got to give some shout outs to some people. Michelle Peltier, Natalie Ziemba, our councilwoman up in Woodstock, Karen, Kurt's Kurt 1 and 2, not that that's importance 1 and 2, but Kurt Herner as well as Kurt Mullet and other folks, Michelle Duster. They all have bad mouths.
Bad mouths?
I was about to say filthy mouths, and that's not fair. They all got cursey mouths, and so do I. And in private, some of the stuff that we say would
there's a lot of 4-letter words.
Yeah, and it would make you guys laugh. But Karen's with us this morning. We're going to have some fun. We may shed a tear or two, but I'm glad you're with us this morning. I hope your week has been well. I know that the craziness that goes on that has continually been going on is exhausting as hell.
Yes, it is.
But this past 7 days, there's been some very inspirational points. And one of the ones for me wasn't just that Governor Newsom and his wonderful trolling. See, this is what cracks me up about the hypocrisy of the Republicans, the GOP across the board, media, GOP, everyday folk, elected officials, is that when this is why you know that it's effective. When we push back, when we slap down and we're hard about it, they get all, this is just not nice to do. And you shouldn't be saying those things. And it's just so, no,
and he's not having any of it. I mean, you look at, remember when Hillary Clinton famously referred to some of his supporters as a basket of deplorables?
Yeah.
And then, the media and that was, too
so
much.
unladylike and not professional as a politician.
Yeah. And then, like I think in a debate between Biden and Trump, and, Biden was a little too harsh. He was too harsh. And then we always take the bait. Democrats always take the bait. What I love about Gavin Newsom is he's saying, I'm not having any of it. I said what I said. This is what we're doing, and we're staying right with it. If you have a problem with me, then you should have a problem with him.
Bingo. And see, that's the part. So you and I both were critical of this is where family. This is where family does what family's supposed to do. When we have somebody in our family that acts up, we got to call them out on it, right? That doesn't mean we stop loving them.
That's right.
That means, in fact, we want them to do better, right? So when he had that little thing with the podcast, and many of us were like, WTF, dude? And he was like, okay. But he recognizes that people are behind the fight.
Right.
And it's needed. But my bright spot this week, really in terms of encouragement and fight, is actually Texas Representative Nicole Collier.
Yes.
That's really been where my heart's been.
That's the courage right there.
Right, that's the courage.
That's the courage.
And it broke my heart when she was on the phone with Senator Booker, and she was in the bathroom. I mean, the part that breaks my heart about this, and I said this on the air, is I have direct history, just 2 generations away, from women who were captured from their freedoms to be a free person, yet alone a woman, were taken away. And to have her be in prison, to be held in, and you got to, all these things. This is why I said earlier in the show, when I was talking with at the opening, why I know there's a higher power, because it keeps me from being in proximity to when something stupid like that happens.
Yeah.
Because there's a dark side of me, and I'm a professional, and I'm a professional separate from this show, and I'm a professional with this show. But that touched a nerve with me.
That should have touched a nerve with a lot of people, and it should have really struck a fear and, just kind of awareness to all people, or an alarm should be going off for people throughout the country, in Texas in particular.
Yeah.
That is not normal. That is not done. That is what fascists do. They disregard completely, and what we're seeing from the Trump regime as well. Total disregard for the rules, norms, laws. I mean, they're just barreling
just humanity.
through all of that.
They're showing the lack of humanity. I don't care what anybody says that wants to play this fake Christian national BS. They're showing, if there is a moment where we could use a phrase, what would Jesus do? We know that Jesus wouldn't do what Texas did to Representative Nicole Collier. That, to me, was, again, like I said, and we know there's a higher power, because it made sure I wasn't in proximity of that situation. And I'm not being all bravado, guys, for those who are out there that want to throw stones.
Oh, don't apologize.
Throw them at it.
We need to be unapologetic when we say our stuff now.
And that's to your point, Karen, so well taken. That then pivots us back to Gavin. Unapologetic, and he shouldn't be. And every other Democratic leader right now, this is kind of what Senator Wilson was just saying, Preston, rather, was saying about be unapologetic about where we are.
That's right.
And we have to continue to march that way,
right?
Because it's effective. And
people are angry. Like, this is what our Democratic representation needs to understand. We are angry. People are angry. I had a conversation with a 90-plus-year-old client, and, she and I can mix it up with politics all the time. I mean, she is like, such kindred spirits when it comes to our reactions and views on things. And I'll tell you something. She was throwing out you talk about four-letter words. I mean, she is angry. She's angry. She's like, I didn't live my whole life to have, the end of it be, spent having to deal with this stuff. She is extremely angry, and I don't think that we can underestimate the anger and the fear, but the determination by people as well.
Yeah.
And so that's what they're afraid of. And they know where this is going, which is why they're doing the autocratic BS in Texas, and why they're going to try and do it throughout the country. They want to take away our voices in favor of one person, an autocrat that is, just filling his own pockets, protecting his own best interests, keeping himself out of jail, and, filling the coffers of the multinational corporations and the millionaires and billionaires, and that's all they're doing. And they will kill people.
There are people there are people whose lives have already been. I'm not going to go down the path of saying lost, because I don't like to say things like that without true data. But their lives have been greatly altered to a point where they could lose their lives because of the resources that have been canceled, redirected. And here's another one, excuse me, that I sent you. Karen and I share articles back and forth, the different topics that are going on. And one of the ones that I shared with her was about this gentleman in that had been that, quote, for lack of words, had been captured and tackled to the ground by ICE. And you guys may have seen.
And when we say ICE, it's not people it's people masked people
that may not
without
necessarily
credentials.
Right. They may not necessarily be ICE. And that's probably the impetus for why he did try to get away.
Sure.
Is because what proof did they have? Did they show him? Like you said, there was no warrant.
There's no warrant. I mean, yeah, these are things people in our Constitution guarantees due process. Part of that due process is that when we are taken into police custody,
here's the reason why.
Here's the reason why. Why? Like, we have a right to ask, why are you stopping me? Why am I being detained? Why are you trying to take me into custody? And if they cannot tell you, and if you don't know that even that in this situation that you're even dealing with who you supposedly are dealing with, well, then that's a kidnapping.
Why should you stay?
That's an abduction. That's a kidnapping.
Yeah, and it's heartbreaking, but it is also the reality of where we are. You are listening to Choose Views on WCPT, AM 820 in Chicago, and WARR 1520, and AM and 103.5 FM from Warren County, North Carolina. We're going to take a quick break. I'm Richard Chu, and we'll be right back.
Is your upper floor too hot in the summer? Are energy bills climbing with every degree? Green Attic can help. With over 15 years of experience and more than 1,000 five-star reviews, Green Attic is a trusted Chicagoland name for insulation, ventilation, and roofing solutions that improve comfort, energy efficiency, and indoor air quality. They specialize in attic insulation, spray foam, crawl space encapsulation, mold remediation, and solar attic fan installation, all designed to keep your home cooler in the warmer months. Green Attic also offers full-service roofing through Green Attic Roofing, including traditional and solar roofing systems with instant online quotes and long-lasting, eco-friendly materials. Green Attic backs its work with the industry's only 10-year labor warranty, plus lifetime warranties on selected materials. Schedule a free installation consultation at greenattic.com or get an instant roofing quote at greenatticroofing.com. That's greenattic.com and greenatticroofing.com.
Hey Google, play WCPT.
Streaming Chicago's progressive talk from TuneIn.
You're listening to Choose Views with Richard Chu.
I will not cozy up to tyrants and dictators like Kim Jong-un who are rooting for Trump. Because, they know he is easy to manipulate with flattery and favors. They know Trump won't hold autocrats accountable because he wants to be an autocrat himself. And as president, I will never waver in defense of America's security and ideals, because in the enduring struggle between democracy and tyranny, I know where I stand and I know where the United States belongs.
Okay, so we know where that comes from. Last year's DNC, the final day, which would have been yesterday, Thursday, when Vice President Kamala Harris spoke, accepted the nomination.
I'm crying over it.
I know. But listen, y'all, I said at the beginning of the show, the group of people that didn't vote and those who voted for Trump, if you know some of them, send them some clips. Remind them of what we could have had. And particularly if they're in the camp of regret for not voting or regret for voting for him, or I didn't think this is not what I voted for, or what I thought. You know, but Karen, take the baton on this one. I mean, I know that from a heartfelt standpoint, you know, many of us were just, you know, excited as hell about where we were headed and the joy. So I do want us to recapture that. Yeah. And but I also feel like we have to remind everyone that this is what we could have had. Now that we don't have it, we do have to be honest about the fact that we've got work to do to get it done, and it means standing up.
And this is why I really, really, really wish that some Democrats that are not actually in public service right now would form a shadow government and counter all of this stuff that's going down and message and talk about. Now, if we were there, this is what we would be doing. Because what we just saw in the capitulation by Donald Trump to Vladimir Putin, we had our service men and women on the ground rolling out a red carpet for a murderous dictator, somebody who throws his political adversaries out windows, poisons them across the globe, okay? And this person who invaded, he is an invader. He could stop the conflict in Ukraine today by pulling troops out.
We don't need all this negotiation.
We don't need all the negotiation.
Meeting in Alaska and all this other garbage. He could stop it.
You could, if he's
doesn't
pulled
even
out
need Trump.
today.
Doesn't even need Trump.
Doesn't need anybody.
This.
That's right. So for Donald Trump to fly to Alaska to meet him, I mean, in the just optics alone, let alone the fact that we knew exactly what was going to happen. We saw what happened in Helsinki. You know, we saw this man, Donald Trump, who is absolutely a traitor to the United States of America. He has scrapped the Constitution. We saw what he did in Helsinki. We know what the Mueller report showed and what was hidden from all of us. We know what happened, right? Dossier. And we know what happened on January 6th. We saw it with our own eyes and we heard it with our own ears. And so for this deplorable to go and grovel at the feet of somebody like Vladimir Putin, and then when you listen to Kamala Harris, and what she said
was going to happen. Yeah.
I mean, this is the thing. This should be a moment where people say, they told us so.
Nobody in America, even if you voted for this fool, no one should ever want to see particularly on the right, because they always send out that same garbage, support the troops, we love our troops, support the troops, we love our troops, back the troops. To see those airmen and women down, literally bending a knee to roll out it was disgusting. So anybody, and I don't care who you are, step to me if you want to, that serves in the military or served in the military that can't call that out.
Right.
then maybe you need to revisit your service to the country.
That should never have happened.
And this should never have happened. And those who serve and served know I'm right, that Karen and I are right about this. And it's not about right for the sake of being right. It's just right in terms of what makes sense for someone that served. I've had military people reach out to me and say, Chew, I can't believe this happened.
Right.
So, to that end, and we're going to play another clip, if we can, Henry. She said it. Mm-hmm. She didn't try to warn. She told straight up.
Exactly.
So for all those people running around saying, well, I wish she had, come and sat down with me at the diner and talked to a real person. BS.
We didn't know who she was.
We didn't know who she was.
Are you kidding me?
Come on.
Right.
So, Henry, let's go to not serious. Not a serious person.
Donald Trump is an unserious man. But the consequences of putting Donald Trump back in the White House are extremely serious. Consider his explicit intent to set free violent extremists who assaulted those law enforcement officers at the Capitol. His explicit intent to jail journalists, political opponents, and anyone he sees as the enemy. His explicit intent to deploy our active duty military against our own citizens. Consider the power he will have, especially after the United States Supreme Court just ruled that he would be immune from criminal prosecution. Just imagine Donald Trump with no guardrails, and how he would use the immense powers of the presidency of the United States, not to improve your life, not to strengthen our national security, but to serve the only client he has ever had, himself. And we know what a second Trump term would look like. It's all laid out in Project 2025, written by his closest advisors, and its sum total is to pull our country back to the past. But America, we are not going back.
Unfortunately, not enough people listened.
Yeah.
And those that said that they were listening, saying they needed something else, kind of lied to themselves. And it goes back to my four legs of the stool: racism, sexism, Christian white nationalism, and privilege. The people that didn't vote leaned on their privilege in many ways, in my opinion.
Absolutely.
They felt like they didn't have to. That was their protest. That was their, whatever. And many of them will be in part of the topic of the book that we're going to cover when we have Kevin on in a little bit. But Karen, I know it's emotional for us to hear that, and to know that that's what we could have had, and for all the people running around saying she didn't do enough, say enough, blah, 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 whether you be a political strategist, an analyst, a journalist, or whomever, what else did you need to hear? Because now we are right where she said we would be. A year ago today, we came out of that convention excited about where we were going. And people decided that they still hadn't heard enough.
Well, we had already seen, and I again, with the failure of the media, for what Biden and Harris were able to get accomplished, and for the media to just sit there and kind of downplay it by saying, well, the numbers show that the economy is doing better, but people aren't feeling it, and things like that, and not go on to explain why, global inflation was still having an impact. On our economy and on the pocketbooks and that.
And here's the interesting thing about feeling. Sorry not to cut you off. People are feeling now. In 6.5, 7 months, right now, they're feeling the negativity of Trump and the tariffs.
How do you feel now?
How do you feel now? So those who've said, I'm not feeling what Biden and Harris have done.
Yeah.
You know,
but this is the thing, and policies be damned. I mean, you just heard. I mean, she warned us about everything. Everything that we see is happening. And that's why I argue with people when they say, well, we didn't vote for that. Yeah, you did. You know, you chose to believe a con man and a grifter, somebody who incited a violent attack on our Capitol.
Yeah.
On January 6th. That should have been enough. That should have been enough for you to say, you know what? I am going to do everything in my power to make sure that that doesn't get back in.
Right. This is why I fight with people when they say that she didn't give me enough to vote for. And voting against isn't the platform. Sometimes it should be. I'm going to vote against that, and by virtue of that, I'm voting for the country.
Right.
And I know I harp on this a lot, guys, but listen, it's the anniversary of one of the most amazing weeks that we had and we're excited for. Mm-hmm. And people and their selfishness and their bias got in the way of that.
That's right.
It's not because Kamala Harris didn't do enough. That's why I said, everybody, give yourself a gift. Go back and watch some of the things from the convention. If nothing else, watch her speech. Mm-hmm. Because everything that's happening right now is exactly what she said was going to happen. Not warned us, tried to warn us.
Right.
She said it. And I'm passionate about this, guys, unapologetically, because we didn't try to tell you.
Yeah.
We told you.
Yes.
So now, what do we do with this to go forward? I'm telling everybody this because I mean it. Get out your computers and whatever and your devices and search for the convention from last year and find something from the convention. If it's not her speech, someone else's speech, but her speech is probably pretty good, and send it to somebody that's a denier. Mm-hmm. Send it to somebody that voted and said, I didn't vote for this. This is not what I wanted. Karen, what say you?
Uh-huh. Yeah, and I mean, and so many of the things that we're warned about are happening. My heart is breaking for what's going on in Gaza. With the people who are now, there is a famine there is and it wasn't good before.
And stop blaming this all on Hamas media. This is not just Hamas blocking goods and whatnot going to people in Gaza.
Right.
It's not.
Right. It is. And that's the thing that I think that was so missed in the coverage and the conversation leading into the election was the fact that it was like, Bibi Netanyahu and Likud rely on Hamas. Hamas relies on Bibi Netanyahu and Likud to stay in power.
Do some research,
It is all about power. It is all about escaping prosecution. It is all about, so it's like there was a lot of mutually beneficial stuff. But what we did talk about and what we did warn about and what Donald Trump said was that he was going to let Bibi Netanyahu finish the job. He promised that. He spoke about, Jared Kushner, his son, was already brokering deals, to develop Gaza.
Yep.
And those stories were out there. And again, with the mainstream media completely failed us. So, polling, information that gets out, the knowledge of the voters out there, it's only going to be as good as the information that they're provided with. And the media absolutely failed.
They did. We're going to take a break, guys. You're listening to Choose Views on WCPT AM 820 in Chicago, WARR 1520 and AM and 103.5 FM in Warren County, North Carolina. I'm Richard Chu, and we'll be right back.
This is a WCPT 820 Heartland Signal News Minute.
I'm running for Congress to continue the legacy of Congresswoman Jackson Lee, Congressman Sylvester Turner, Barbara Jordan, Mickey Leland, Craig Washington.
That's Texas congressional candidate Isaiah Martin. He's running in a 2025 special election to fill the vacancy left by Sylvester Turner, who died in March after serving in Congress for just 2 months. Martin told WCPT's Richard Chu that the current Texas redistricting effort is intended to erase the legacy of those he named, all of whom served the 18th District in Congress. Last month, Martin was forcibly removed from a hearing of the Texas House Congressional Redistricting Committee and jailed for 30 hours.
The next day, I went straight back up to those Republicans after all charges were dropped to let them know that we, the people, are not afraid of them. And I think it is that boldness, that audacity that we need so desperately right now.
For WCPT 820 and Heartland Signal, I'm Andy Miles.
You're listening to WCPT 820. Here's the latest Chicago weather update.
From the Weatherology Weather Center, I'm meteorologist Jennifer Wojcicki. A blend of clouds and sunshine develops here for today. We'll see a high in the low 80s. Winds out of the northwest around 5 to 10 miles per hour. Tonight, mostly cloudy skies develop a low near 66. By Saturday, a slight chance for showers and thunderstorms. Blend of clouds and sunshine develops high around 83 degrees. Then by Sunday, mostly sunny skies, a high around 74. That's your latest Chicago weather update.
Currently, it's 70.
WCPT 820, Chicago's progressive talk, where facts matter.
Welcome back to Choose Views with Richard Chew.
All right, guys, welcome back to the show. 773-763-9278 is the number. So before we went to the break, we were doing a little bit of reminiscing to try to bring back a little bit of the joy that came from last year's convention. At the same time, to inspire you guys to stay in the fight, because we know that that's what we've got to do. We always have given a certain amount of, I guess you could say, added respect and attention to those who sit down and write a book that may be viewed by many as controversial, but at the same time is one that's informative. We also appreciate our professors. I'm a guy that loves education and love the folks that teach. And with us this morning is Professor and Chair of the Department of History at the University of Illinois in Chicago, and that would be Professor Kevin Schultz. Good morning, Doc. How are you this morning?
Good morning. You're doing great. Happy to be chatting back on WCPT.
Thank you. Glad you were with us this morning. And with us also is my good friend, Karen Byrne, who is one of the co-founders of TruBlu Politics podcast. So she may chime in during the conversation this morning. So welcome to the show. First time being on Choose Views, and I'm really glad to have you with us this morning. And you've got some, right now you've got one of I'll say one of the hottest books out there that talks about a topic that many people, I guess you could say, don't want to talk about, but they definitely know it's a real one. And I've really, I've had a chance to kind of go through the book a little bit, but let's talk about your latest publication and your latest writing. Why everyone hates white liberals, including white liberals. Talk a little bit about your latest book.
Yeah, happily. And it's been so fun talking, going around the country talking about this book to people on the left, people on the right, people in the center. Everybody's so engaged right now. And it's been sort of a cathartic experience for me to see so much eagerness to fix what people see as broken, and so much excitement about the possibilities for the future, even if there's also a lot of fear about what's going on right now. So, yeah, I wrote this book, Why Everyone Hates White Liberals, Including White Liberals, because, like many Americans, I was petrified by all the polarization that we were seeing and how especially the right was really amping up and making dramatic and really serious threats to democracy. And I'm a historian, headed the Department of History at UIC, as you mentioned, a place I love and I'm honored to be working right now that's creating the next middle class. And my previous history books were all about the middle decades of the 20th century and how the United States fought to create sort of a more inclusive country when we were no longer thought of as, say, a Protestant America, but actually a multi-religious place, a diverse place of religious diversity and religious tolerance. And then my other books were about sort of the sensibility that we could all work together and we could incorporate immigrants into the national project. We could take all the ideas that were central to the country, from the Declaration of Independence to the Constitution, and really make us a nation of ideas instead of a nation of sort of race or a nation of religion or a nation of sort of hardcore nationalism or something like that. And so I was when I was writing those books, I was struck by the fact that all of these efforts were called liberal. And then I was struck by our current environment where everybody seems to be attacking liberals. So the book really tells the story of how liberal went from being like this centrist idea that brought Americans together in the 1940s, 1950s, 1960s, how liberals sort of triumphed over the Great Depression and helped defeat authoritarianism during World War II and then helped expand the middle class in the 1950s and 1960s. They weren't perfect by any stretch of the imagination, and I call them out when they make mistakes. But then I start charting the attacks that we've seen since the 1960s, 70s, 80s, and definitely ramping up today against liberals, and especially white liberals, from multiple quarters in American life. From the left, for sure. A lot of my leftist, socialist, communist friends over at Dissent and Jacobin, they've got a lot of problems with who they see as liberals. And from the black community, for sure, who sees liberals, sort of halfway friends who don't really want to push for equality. But it's really reached its sort of pinnacle of insanity coming from the right, especially since sort of the Rush Limbaugh days in the 1980s, 1990s, through the Fox News days and up to today's commentaries all over the right, to our current president, who has made a career out of owning the libs or triggering the libs, as you might hear about it today. So I sort of wanted to chart the decline of the center of American politics and see where the rise of our polarization has come from. And so I get to tell that history, and, going around the country, it's been great to sort of see what animates people and what people are interested in. People love the history. They love sort of having an explanation of where we came from and how we got to where we are. And then I try and end the book on some hopeful notes on where we might be going in the future.
So, and thank you for that. And what came to mind right out of the gate is, and this is kind of how I think, when did things change and go wrong? Most people that know me will know this about me. When something happens, I'll go, okay, so when did this happen? What happened? When did it start? Even if it's something as simple as going down the wrong street when you're driving. So where were you? And people that know me know that. What was the
catalyst?
Yeah, what was the catalyst? So that's where my brain went when I first started reading through your book. And I may be wrong, but this is where I think that sort of liberal strength of FDR going into the 60s started to wane. And I think if there is a seminal moment, is during LBJ's term and the Civil Rights Amendment of 1965, which we're just, we're a week and a half past the history of that incredible signature of that document in legislation. I feel like that's when the right took the message, because it also kind of, if you juxtapose that against the statement that, we've lost the South forever, seems to be one thing that I can throw a dart at and go, it maybe started around that time when strong liberal thinking started to be attacked. Am I close, or do you have maybe a different timetable on that?
So, I'm a historian, so I'm going to complicate things. But I think you're definitely close, especially for when we focus on the right's attack on liberals. My friend Heather Cox Richardson, who probably many people read her daily newsletter, who are listeners today, she had a piece 2 or 3 days ago where she talked about specifically these acts, the 64 Civil Rights Act, the 65 Voting Act, and the 1968 Housing Rights Act. And then I would have added to that the busing, the imposed busing measures, where white kids from the suburbs were bused into black schools, and black kids from the cities were bused to white schools as a way of sort of forcing integration. That certainly provoked a lot of resentment. All of those things that you're touching at. I could say that it was sort of cobbled together before then. You've got sort of the William F. Buckley Jr.'s and the National Review, who are claiming that the liberal media, as they called it, was sort of fashioning the way we think about it. And then you do get to the civil rights bills and measures that you're talking about, and then that carries over towards resentment that the liberals are the elitists who are trying to provoke change from behind their white picket fences or from their Upper East Side apartments. So that is definitely an important step along the way. And actually, Richard, you hit the timing pretty darn good. If you look at polling data, and formal polling in this country goes back to about the 1930s. Mm-hmm. From the 1930s, when FDR was president, to about 1965, 66, roughly half of Americans claimed to be a liberal, and even more than that, claimed to be sympathetic with liberal policies and liberalism as a governing ideal. And starting in 1965, 66, 67, those numbers start to plummet.
Yeah.
But I would complicate one thing just really quickly, is it's not necessarily the civil rights activism that turns everybody against liberals. Because from the left, you start seeing attacks on the liberals in this same era, but not about civil rights necessarily, but about opposition to the Vietnam War, about conformist culture, about these different ideas that liberals are supposedly bringing. So you're close. You were almost there.
Well,
and of course, I'm going to complicate it. That's what I do.
No. The complication gives us something to work with, and I think that's important. I don't say it as complicated. It's just adding more value to the conversation and adding more information to this topic. Mm-hmm. As someone that I would say that over my lifetime, and I'm sure that many folks like me that look like me that can say this. We deal with what is you as a historian and as a professor can attest to as a white guy is the good white people paradox, and how that impacts this. Now that's a phrase that a lot of people may not be have ever heard before, but there are those who know what that means, both black and white. And I'm not excluding our other communities of color and diversity when I make this statement. But to your point that you made here and also parts of the book, you speak about how black leaders, we can start with Malcolm, we can certainly to some extent even include Dr. King in this. I've said before, folks like Medgar Evers, the list goes on of black leaders during the 60s civil rights and social movement that said that one of our biggest challenges is the fact that we have a number of quote unquote good white folks who want to help only to a certain point, and that's to the point when their freedoms and their safeties and their privilege is being tested. I think we're at that moment again right now, in some ways more than we were in the 60s and the early 70s, because of the amount of wealth that people have accumulated and the disparities that have taken place during that time. What say you, Doc?
I have a whole chapter on this, and it was one of my favorite and also least favorite chapters to write. Look, if you look at the early civil rights movement, starting in the 1950s and building up into the early 1960s, civil rights activists, including Dr. Martin Luther King and Gwendolyn Brooks and James Baldwin, there's this profound hope that the moral message of the black freedom struggle will become a moral and ethical issue to white liberals. And if you read Fire Next Time, like I read it every single year because I assign it to my students because I think it's such a powerful work, that whole book ends with this plea for white liberals and black liberals to come together and make the changes that are necessary to create a truly equal nation. And if that doesn't happen, as he famously ends the book, there's going to be no more water. It's the fire next time, right? Mm-hmm. And one of my sort of sad and profound research finds when I was doing this book is I can pinpoint almost the exact season when the black freedom struggle's leaders, Martin Luther King especially, turns against white liberals, or maybe turns against is too strong, but loses faith that the white liberals are actually going to show up this time. And so if you read Letter from a Birmingham Jail, that's a plea to white liberals. That's a plea for white liberals to come around and do the right thing this time. But if you start looking at Martin Luther King's speeches from 1965, 66, 67, he's just frustrated that white liberals haven't shown up. He's taken the struggle to Chicago. He's marching in democratic Chicago white towns. And so you see this sort of falling into this trope that's been around the black community, the black vocabulary for hundreds of years, going back to slave times. And that continues to this day. I mean, if you read Ibram X. Kendi's work, which I know you have, he sort of sets up this triptych of, sure, there's these racists, right, on the one side, and then there's these anti-racists, which he's hoping that we all will become, and in the middle are the assimilationists, who are hugely problematic, right? So he's spelling out this sort of kind of map that you've created for us. So, yeah, you're exactly right that it's still there today. I have this one story where James Baldwin is invited to give this talk on liberalism and the Negro in 1964, hosted by Commentary magazine, which was then a liberal magazine. Now it's a conservative or neoconservative magazine. And James Baldwin, he's one of the few black people in the whole place, And he says white liberals kind of an affliction on the black community because they always say they're going to show up, and they never show up. And all the white liberals in the audience, famous people, they start protesting. And then there's this little hand in the audience, and he raises his hand. Turns out it's Kenneth Clark, the great psychologist whose work had been used in Brown v. Board of Education. And he says, I'm forced to agree with Mr. Baldwin right here. So it's this fantastic moment where white liberals don't even realize the cost of being just a halfway friend who's not willing to fully bring about, equality.
What a wonderful.
So I think you hit on a really interesting point, especially coming from minoritized communities. And, in American history, I'm a student of American history. The black community sets the tone in a lot of ways for how other communities will follow. And so that sort of discourse of frustration followed from the feminist movement, followed into the gay rights movement. It's sort of been a persistent thorn in people struggling for civil rights.
Wow, I can't wait to take your class. You're listening to Choose Views on WCPT AM 820 in Chicago and WARR 103.5 FM and 1520 AM from Warren County, North Carolina. I'm Richard Chu. We're talking to Professor Kevin Schultz, who's written this phenomenal book, Why Everyone Hates White Liberals, Including White Liberals. Kevin, I'm going to, just for a quick second, my colleague Karen Byrne is one of those white women in America that is probably the prototype of a person that agrees with the title of your book, and she just has a quick question she wants to ask. I'm sure she's got a dozen questions, but we've got limited time. So, Karen, I know you wanted to say something to Professor.
Well, no, I really appreciate the conversation. I appreciate, I'm going to have to pick up the copy of the book. I have not read it, but I am very intrigued. But what you talk about the white liberals that kind of fall in that middle area that don't really show up. And this is, as a white liberal, one of my biggest pet peeves is the fact that there are so many people that, while no, they're not running around, using the N-word, they don't disrupt the racism. Like, I don't even think that it's a matter of, I think that some people, there's a combination. Some people think that, okay, I don't really know how to show up. What am I supposed to do? What can I do? This is such a big problem. Racism is such a big problem in this country. And I argue that it's how you show up in your day-to-day life and how you show up in your conversations. And until that middle ground of white liberals starts getting comfortable with getting uncomfortable in daily conversations and in their actions to disrupt racism, whether in the workplace, whether at the coffee group, whether, going out to lunch with family members or getting together on holidays, we have to become the turds in the punch bowls and really, disrupt this and make it, uncomfortable for people that are just sitting on the fence or are just, are helping sustain the systemic racism in this country.
Yeah, I agree with you completely. It's one thing to just go and sort of make a performative march on behalf of George Floyd, and it's one thing to stick a lawn sign in your front yard. Those things are kind of easy to do, but it's very different to actually address racism. And I would say, it's not because we're not seeing too much overt racism, but we're seeing microaggressions and we're seeing sort of hidden aspects of racism that, to be honest, a lot of white people are beneficiaries of. Yeah. It's hard to sort of not only notice, but then have the courage to step up and feel like you're doing the right thing. So I agree with you completely. And I want to add one thing that I've encountered a lot of when I've gone around the country talking about this book. And sort of to kind of be blunt, I think that a lot of people are afraid, a lot of good-meaning, white liberal people are afraid to step in because they're afraid that they'll say something incorrectly. Nobody's using the N-word anymore or anything like that, but they'll say something that is sort of crossing an imaginary line, and then they will be canceled or they will be exposed for being racist, when in fact what they're trying to do is the exact opposite thing. But while they're stepping in, sort of their quiet racism or their quiet sort of expectations that they've been acculturated to will be exposed. So I would say I love what you're saying as far as, step up your anti-racism. And that's why Ibram X. Kendi, who, I have some quibbles with as a historian, but as an activist, I think does a pretty good job. He wrote that book, How to Be Anti-Racism. Mm-hmm. So it's exactly addressing the question that you were talking about. Mm-hmm. And then I would like for people to generally be sort of less eager to jump on cancel culture issues. Let people make mistakes. Let people have the opportunity to grow. I was at a bookstore talking about exactly this subject in Providence, Rhode Island a couple of weeks ago. And I said there are some aspects where the left can be illiberal. And a whole bunch of white liberal people in the audience actually applauded that statement because they were so unaccustomed to hearing that sort of acknowledgement. So I agree with you completely, and I would encourage everybody to allow people to make mistakes, allow people to grow. There's ways you can correct people and teach them without canceling them or exposing them for being something maybe more than what they are.
Yeah, I've been criticized, and I'll handle the criticism, and I'll take it. When I've said, going back to the thing about good white people, it's a lesson I learned from my father, Dr. Schultz, and that is he grew up in rural Mississippi, as my mother did, and they moved to Chicago during the stages of the Great Migration. And a couple of the lessons my father taught me in this space about good white people, he said, listen, he said, just look at the numbers. Look at the numbers. He said that for us to overcome, truly, we have to partner with people that have the numerical power. Mm-hmm. And he made it clear to me that that's what you have to do because of the raw numbers. He said, that doesn't change history. That doesn't change what's happened to our community. He said, but we have to embrace that. He said, but we do have to hold them to a standard that's different than others. And what he meant by that was, it's okay to call out your white friend, as a black person, it's okay to call out your white friend that's on your side, that may have said something or done something that wasn't meant with harm, but it's better that you call them out and embrace them than to not call them out and let them get out there and make an utter fool of themselves with someone that doesn't care. And he was very clear about that because he said, listen, I grew up at a time when you had to be very careful with what you said. He talked about the laughing barrels in Mississippi and all the things that he had to encounter. He said, but there was always someone there that was white that knew that what was happening to the community of black folks was wrong and that they were there quietly doing what they could to help. So I'm with you on that, Doc, in terms of people are going to make those mistakes. And to say that everybody's going to get it right all the time when it comes to racism or sexism or bias in general is kind of a fool's game. And to embrace that and say, look, mess up, but mess up moving forward, I think is the way that we have to be. And yeah, we do have to push our white liberal brothers and sisters to work a little bit differently, to work a little bit harder, and to get out of their comfort zone and feel that it's okay to make a mistake. And, we're going to be there to support you. If we don't do that, then we will not have this democracy that we know that we're trying to fight for.
I love that. Your dad was a wise man, and I think that's exactly the way we can move forward. I get to tell one story when I teach the Greensboro sit-in in North Carolina in 1960 that really kicked off the civil rights movement. And it's when those 4 college students sat down at the Woolworths counter in Greensboro, and they desegregated ultimately. They didn't know they were going to succeed when they did it, of course, and it took a great amount of courage for them to plan and go and sit down at the counter and stage these sit-ins. And as they did it on the first day, they were waiting for some sort of violent reaction, because that's the history of the South for you. And they saw this old white woman who had a cane start walking towards them. And they started to think, oh, God, here it is. This lady's going to raise her cane and beat us over the head, and then all hell's going to break loose. And instead, this woman sort of cobbled her way up there, and she turned to him and said, boys, I'm so proud that you are doing this. I wish you would have done this generations ago. Mm-hmm. Just this moment of inspiration. So if you allow people to make mistakes, they might end up surprising you with their goodwill. So that's one of the things that I've learned going around the country is people really want to engage. They really want to do right. And they're afraid, some of them, to make little mistakes and get called out for it. So if we lead with the sensibility of forgiveness and allow people to have their opinions be heard and then move forward from there, I think it's a really productive form of conversation, and it will help erode a lot of the polarization that we're seeing in our country today, where everybody's so afraid of saying something wrong that they just go back into their silo and they hide with their friends. Now, I get the comfort of that for sure, but I don't think it's necessarily a useful way for us to have this democratic experiment work in the way that we want it to.
Without a doubt. And really the fight has got to be us, all of us that are progressive, liberal, Democrats, however we're phrasing it. We have to fight against the other side. The other side is far more deadly. Now, there's, again, this is a conversation, Doctor, we're going to have again, but the real fight has to be us fighting against that which is trying to oppress all of us, and rather than fighting with each other on some of the crumbs. We need to fight the big fight against the other side. And that's why everyone hates white liberals, including white liberals, is such a powerful piece of work. And we appreciate you taking some time to be with us. Professor Kevin Schultz from the University of Illinois here at Chicago. Thanks for being with us. How can folks find you real quick as we wrap up today?
You can find me at your local bookstore or on Amazon or University of Chicago Press Book, or shoot me an email. I'm highly visible on the UIC History Department webpage, so I'd love to continue this conversation. I really appreciate the good work that you guys are doing.
Thank you.
Thanks for being with us, Doc. Have a great weekend. We'll talk to you soon. Bye now.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Karen, where are folks going to be this weekend? I know real quick.
Okay. So 7500 Roosevelt Road in Forest Park in front of the Taco Bell, 10 to 11:30. Join the People's Post Alliance with our good friend Walter Mitchell. We will be out there making some good trouble. And also, quick shout out to my baby boy, Jimmy Byrne, on his 31st birthday. Happy birthday, baby.
There you go. Guys, it's been great being with you once again this week. Thanks to my man Henry. Thanks to Matt. Thanks to Devin for keeping us on the rails. Take a deep breath and make your life count. We'll see you next week.
Greece is cheap.
But the airfare costs a fortune.
Paris?
Not much closer, and again, airfare...
What about Puerto Vallarta?
Let's face it, flying anywhere is just too expensive.
Wait, what's this? Low-cost airlines.
With one call to low-cost airlines, you'll drastically slash your travel costs. We're talking insanely low airline prices to any of your favorite destinations. Where would you like to go? London, Rome, Costa Rica, Australia?
Wow, that's cheap.
So why wait? Call now.